Here's our husking drying operations. Whenever our nuts are coming in, we'll go ahead and put them on the slab there, and husking will determine which nuts to process that day, or how many different nuts to process. And you know, standard husking operation, primary, secondary husker, and eventually it goes into the drying tank. And then from here, we'll grab all that mac nut husk and put them into our windrow piles and compost them. So we'll take a quick look at those. Our process for composting, we just let it sit for 4 months to about a year. We won't actively turn it. That's in the original plans, and we'll eventually get to that point. But our more broken down husk is at the further end. We try to irrigate whenever we can, but we let Mother Nature take care of that, and then we'll turn every so often. But from here, this is the more newly fresh husk that just came from husking. We actually cleared out 2 rows worth of it and put quite a bit back into the field. We currently don't have any system to separate any of the old nuts, so we're putting some of that material back into the field. We'll apply it with our mulch spreaders, 13.5 cubic yards. It's kind of a slow process, but it's really helped out. In our Manchero harvesters, it's a lot smoother surface for them to pick up the nuts. They're not having a battle trying to, you know, fight taking out the nuts from the roots. We've seen the feeder roots just thrive in them. I mean, it seems almost like it's just become part of the soil, you know. So a couple of things to, you know, we ask ourselves is, what's our goal in mulching? You know, is it to supply enough nutrients for the trees, improve moisture retention, or just provide a smoother surface for harvesting if mechanically it's being done? If we meet just our tree needs, we only apply about 2 yards per acre. Lately, more of our focus has been supplying enough materials so the Mancheros can harvest. But if you're just looking to improve your moisture retention, even just applying 1/2 inch thickness of mulch can greatly improve your tree's response during times of drought. So it's all just dependent on what fits your needs. And when we do apply, it won't be to the entire orchard floor, just to the tree row, about 3 feet on each side. Since it's a side discharge, it's, you know, it does a really good job of, you know, uniformly applying it. We've had some trials that we did apply it to the entire surface, but that's a lot of material, you know. So our strategy has worked out pretty well, so we're happy with the results. It's just dependent on, you know, what fits your needs. We'll leave that more up to the operator, but he's putting on sometimes as much as 3 inches thick. So if there's certain fields that have heavily eroded soil and the roots are exposed, he'll just apply a lot more. If it's not as exposed, he'll go ahead and apply a little less, because he knows you have that much more material to apply for the next trees. So not so much a set, you know, cubic yards. But even with the mulcher, we're kind of playing with it, yeah. Eventually, we wanted to get to the point where we actually have a system that actually turns and irrigates the mulch. That'd be ideal, but that was originally in the plan, but logistically it made kind of like we wanted to apply shredded leaves and broken down branches and trunks, but logistically, but yeah, no nitrogen, yeah. From here, we'll actually go check out a field where we mulched over a year ago and where we recently mulched to see what the difference is so far and how the trees have responded. This is 4 rows of 344 for every 1 row of 660. But this is where we've applied the mulch over a year ago. As you can see, or maybe not see, we're not having as much exposed roots. If you just go ahead and remove some of those leaves, you can see some of the feeder roots really really active compared to our other orchards that have a lot of exposed roots. It just looks like you just have tree trunks on the ground, basically. And what we found is those feeder roots have really held this mulch in. The Moncheros already have harvested here this whole past season, which was 2 rounds. The year before that was 3 rounds. So we didn't have to pack the mulch down. We let Mother Nature take care of itself. You know, rain, over time it'll just settle in, and then the trees have really responded well. We have not seen a significant jump in yield yet, but that should take, you know, a few years to actually see it. It's made a world of difference in harvest efficiency. Moncheros have a lot less breakdowns here. For one, we didn't want to remove anything because production has been pretty well in this area. But that's a great question, because that's what we've been looking at for about 8 months now, is when do we start to thin out the orchard, or at least begin to hedge. This is actually one of the fields, not this off season just because we're constrained with time, but we'll go ahead in here with the hedger to just open up some of that area. But like I said, we haven't focused as much on this field just because it's done okay. There's other fields that we're gonna hedge this off season just because it allows easier access for machinery to go through. There's certain fields where the Monchero, the branches are coming down here, you know, so they can only go in so much, nuts being left behind. But yeah, we're really starting to evaluate when do we start removing trees. But I think a lot of the MacNut industry the plan was to start thinning out trees, but maybe some hesitancy just because of, you know, the cost to do so. Another thing is this field is irrigated. It doesn't supply all the water needs of the trees, but it can really get by to improve moisture retention here. And since we apply at a thicker rate, water holds here a lot better than in our lower fields where we haven't harvested or haven't mulched, sorry. Once prior to harvest, so that could be 3 to 4 times per year. Because here it's pretty shaded, we probably won't mow and spray as much. Only if there is a significant weed issue for whatever reason. Maybe a tree died and there was sunlight that came through, and then, you know, that vegetation will start to sprout. Yeah. We'll go ahead and check out where we recently mulched to see what the difference is. Here you can clearly tell the difference where we mulched over a year ago and where we mulched in the last 4 months. It still basically looks like charcoal, right? Charcoal on the ground. I don't know if you can tell, you can see some of these exposed roots, and it was a lot more exposed without the mulch. You know, we have not tested it, but we've only grabbed from the mulch that's been sitting for over a year. Prior to mulching this past year again, it wasn't part of the daily operations, just because limited manpower. But now we're only working with whatever's over a year old, and we'll continue to do the same because of those same types of concerns. Yeah, we don't want it pulling nutrients away from what the trees need. So yeah, and here, so we mulched here about like 3 months ago, and we had quite a bit of rain. I think it was 15 inches over a short period of time. And we were quite surprised how well the mulch stayed here. I mean, it's not as bad as the terrain, but it held really well. So we're happy about that. So when we are applying the mulch, yep, right against the tree, maybe the operator is about a couple feet from the actual site area. So he has quite a bit of leeway to get the mulch where he needs it, and then that's where he'll make his decision. Okay, we'll apply a little bit more thick because more exposed roots, but if not, then he can lay it off a bit. We've tried to set it up to where he'd have the mulch pile close by. And in those cases, he can do about 72 trees per day, 72, maybe 78, about there, yeah. Our expectation was we're not gonna go back in here for at least a couple years so we can focus on other fields, so they can get a little bit more Monchero friendly. So we haven't planned to come back in the next year or so. Okay. Yep. So this is our mulcher, 13.5 cubic yard capacity, and this is our, I gotta say, it's one of my favorite pieces of equipment on the farm. So yeah, currently it's down, the PTO shaft needs to be put in. And then we have our Nelson Hardy sprayer. That'll be for foliar and foliar fertilizer, and spraying for coccid, and this is more for their trees that are like 55 feet tall. And then we have the interlink sprayer, and that's more for manageable trees that are about 30 or so feet tall. You know, that one a lot more maneuverable through the field, so the operator likes that. No, it does not. That's why we'll wait for it to fully break down, or yeah. That's why we generally wait about a year for it, yeah. Because when that husk comes off, it's still, you know, still fairly whole, and it can get caked up in a lot of different stuff. And here, once broken down, it's almost just like soil, right? Yeah. And just right here is our mechanical hedger. We mainly just want acres done, you know, not so much tailor make it to what the tree needs. It's just enough to open up the sunlight, or let enough sunlight in to promote vegetative cover in the orchard floor. So no, like 22 or 23 feet high, yeah. All right, yeah. So we'll move on to the coccid area, and we'll talk more how we selectively spray for coccid. So we'll be discussing selective MFC spraying. We've recently started incorporating only spraying in heavily infested areas and even moderately infested areas, because as we're kind of all seeing in our orchards, generally it's in clusters, you know, not so much dispersed evenly throughout. Because originally we had a big problem. When I first arrived, the schedule was whenever MFC was found, we spray the field, and it worked. It knocked out the populations, but by that time we already saw it die back a lot on the trees. I'm quite amazed, you know, how resilient these trees are, and they'll recover. So in the last 2 years, we started, okay, only certain rows are showing it, you know, or maybe only a certain block. And another thing was a lot of the beneficial beetles or the beneficial predators were found in those same areas, or even neighboring. So, because we spray Esteem, when we spray it, kills the beneficials. So we started to only go in certain areas. What we found out was it didn't spread. We've been able to maintain it, and it's reduced our labor costs, time, and we feel like the trees have now they can hold a certain amount. These last 2 years we haven't seen any dieback, and why we're here is because we do actually have coccid in this one tree and further in. We've only found this in the last 2 weeks, but we're going to monitor it on a weekly basis, see how it progresses. Just to give you an idea how sometimes quickly it can spread, we did crawler counts on a monthly basis, and this was like early 2018. We had about 50 crawlers per square inch. The next month it was 583 crawlers per square inch. It was that whole tree was full of coccid, but we just did a full blanket spray of the whole field just to be safe. We were able to get there in time, and no dieback was shown. We've since monitored that same tree and that same field. Coccid has been really manageable, so quite impressive. A few things that we found out: generally when there's coccid in our orchard, the ambrosia beetle has settled in. Yeah. And I gotta say, that has me more concerned than the coccid, because once they're in the tree, chemically there's not something out there that effectively can treat them. If you want to take a closer look, here's you can see some infestation here, and then we're seeing a lot of shavings from the ambrosia beetle boring in. We're just going to monitor it over time, see if it's spreading to the neighboring trees. Not recently, yeah. In the last year, we haven't even sprayed here in the last year. No, it's been pretty erratic, Really? Yeah, because there's been some years where we had wet weather and we still had coccid come about, okay. And obviously in some drought years, they're a little bit more prominent in that time. Yeah. Another interesting note, so there was 1 year we had a little bit of extra fertilizer left over, and I remember the cultivation supervisor says, "What do you want to do with it?" I said, "We can apply it in this field." It was only like 7 acres. Within a 6 months period, coccid infestation increased rapidly, and what we're thinking is, the nitrogen content, was like their sweetener. Oh, right there, right? And we later soil sampled, pH decrease, so it was even more susceptible. So now we're very careful how we manage our nitrogen because of things like that, and it's helped us. It's really helped us, yeah. We'll apply calcium carbonate, just about that. Obviously, like the dolomite, that's really effective because it's finer material and it reacts quicker, but it's like a powder and we don't have the equipment to get it done, right? Yeah. We wanted to, but it was expensive. Yeah, because Reggie Hasagawa, he's like, "Yeah, try this," and I was like, "Yeah," and I look at the price. Oh no, never mind. We'll just deal with it. Yeah. It was hard for me to justify. We're getting our calcium now from BEI, but they have it, they source it from Oahu. It's called Sandwash Lime, and we've recently applied it in Kaʻū, and I mean the material to handle no different from what they had in Kauai High. So and then we're gonna also, there's some fields that we have like a pH of 4.5. We got to get on it now. That's not, yeah. I've been kind of clamoring from like 2 years ago, we need to apply it, and now sometimes, oh yeah. Yeah.
You got any suggestions on how to deal with it?
Lately, we just analyze our soils for biological activity, because the soil samples just gives you a nutrient reading.
Yeah.
What we found out was our soils aren't as diverse as what we may have thought. So yeah. So and that's why we started mulching. That's why we're starting to incorporate a lot more vegetation on the ground. So when we mow, there's actually organic matter being provided. But like, we've had some trials. We've used certain fungicides to help the flowers actually fight off the Phytophthora, and we've seen some kind of mixed results. Just before peak flowering, and we're expecting some rain, we'll go ahead and apply, because it can last for, we've seen just 2 weeks worth of some tolerance to it. After that, then we haven't been able to get back in there quickly enough to do it. So but that's worked well for us, is right as you're starting to see a gradual peak in flowering, and a lot of it is just like plain weather, man.
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll go ahead and check out one last field where we pruned, and we can discuss some different methods on how to go about for your orchard needs. So certain areas here we have pruned with that the hedger, and that's where we'll just allow enough sunlight in. Our Nalehu orchard, they focus a lot more on using the chainsaw to selectively prune. What they'll typically do is, once the trees start to encroach with each other, they'll start hedging the more the trees or the branches with leaves that are starting to touch, and they won't do as much. They'll do maybe 2 to 3 branches per tree per year, because doing an excess amount might stress the tree, cause it to not produce as much, or you might get an excessive flush, and then the following year you're gonna have to prune again. So it's just dependent on what you're looking for, the structure of your tree. Obviously, the more you hack off, the less production you'll get. So it can be broken up into, either it's called limb rejuvenation, where you're actually cutting the branch all the way down to where the branch meets the trunk, or there's sorry, that's limb removal. And the limb rejuvenation is just, you're cutting halfway of that branch off, so you'll still maintain that branch. The following year it should produce a good flush. Generally what we do is just light hedging, no more than 23 inches per side, and we'll just go at that, because prior to hedging, a lot of this field was shaded, and you can see the difference. That's why we kind of stopped here, to see the difference between the shaded area versus the non, and we'll just allow that vegetation to come in. This has provided quite a bit of organic matter for our trees. Some of the challenges with maintaining this vegetation is more inputs, right? You're going to have somebody mowing, or if you want to use herbicide. But generally we try to mow as much as possible. If we don't get in there as quickly, stink bug will be a problem if we don't pick up the nuts in a certain amount of time. So generally, if we know we're not going to get in there within a certain period, we'll make sure to keep mowing it, just to reduce some of that damage that may occur. If we could, we would do it by seed and have like a nitrogen fixing crop that can feed some of the trees, but practically we're not there yet. Maybe one day we will. And I know the university has done some studies hedging has great benefits to reducing MFC pressure. So there's really good results that come from that. And we've also seen an increase with promoting the vegetation. We've seen a bit increase in the steel blue ladybird. So those are really abundant, and sometimes when we're walking through, oh, you can kind of see them even in the grass. So not just in the tree, but all throughout. That's very encouraging for us. Yeah. And another thing we'll do, maybe not so much during the season, but as we're hedging or as we're just doing going through the field, we'll try to remove as much suckers as possible, just because they encroach. Yeah, they can produce nuts, but yeah, it's just taken away from the main tree. So all that really just incorporates into the care of older orchards. You know, if you start incorporating all these facets, it can help prolong their productivity. Obviously, the base of your foundation should be a healthy soil, if you have soil, right? So, no, but honestly, that can be a great thing too, right? You know, like
aggregate sizes from like grain sand particles to this.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is good drainage, right?
Never floods there.
Yeah. So it's just, I guess, you know, always got to find what fits your needs, and it's always evolving. I know for us, we're not constantly in the same, we're going to do it again this year. You know, we're always trying to modify it in some ways, whether it's successful or not. I mean, even in our failures, we're going to see, oh, there's something to be learned from it. Yeah, I wish I could give you more info on pruning, because I wanted to do more crazy stuff. No, just leave them as it is, you know. Yeah, I kind of wanted to, like, you know, even hack off the main leader and see what came about. So this one is about 2,800 pounds per acre. Down over there, it's like 3,200 pounds per acre.
Also not that much different.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And are they the same age, or these are the younger ones?
No, these are, so that was 1980. I think this might be, maybe just a few years difference. Yeah, but same variety and same planting pattern. Yeah. But one thing to note is this used to be hand harvest areas, so that's why you'll see a lot more mounds here. Whereas the mulch area trial, or not trial, the mulch field, that was always mechanically harvested. So it's a little difficult to compare, because the methods of harvest was different. So yeah, so all these are all our younger trees, and we expect, this is Monchero harvested, so it's going to be easy on the soil and possibly not decrease yields, because we're not eroding a lot of the topsoil. So yeah.